This is a special show for us, and we're doing things a little bit differently than we normally do. We are showing an absolute classic film noir that you're about to see, starring, in my mind, inarguably the greatest Hollywood couple ever, Humphrey Bogart and Lauren Bacall. What's really interesting about this evening's double bill is that the second feature tonight is a totally new film made by Steve Anderson, who had been a regular here at the Noir City Film Festival for many years. I really didn't know him. There's no kind of nepotism involved here or anything. I just knew that Steve came to the festivals and he contacted me and said that he had made this new film. What I find really interesting is I like the influence that classic film noir has on filmmakers and writers and artists today. I don't really think there's much value in trying to recreate the old films today. I don't really think it works. What I find really interesting is how those old films can influence films made today. And Steve's film, to me, is a really beautiful example of that because he learned a lot of very valuable lessons from old noir films and B films and story structure and satisfying an audience's expectations, playing with an audience's expectations, and it was really cool to see this movie as an extension of classic noir in a contemporary setting and not a film that's just trying to imitate a classic noir. It was even more fascinating when the Humphrey Bogart estate got involved with Steve in actually producing and distributing this film. And that's why we thought it was a really cool idea today to show a classic Bogart and Bacall film, and then a film produced by the Humphrey Bogart estate. And because of this, we have the distinct and rare pleasure of having Stephen Bogart with us to talk between the two films, because of course, just imagine if your parents are Humphrey Bogart and Lauren Bacall. That automatically makes you a pretty exceptional person.
Thanks everybody for coming. I really appreciate it, and it's great to be here.
Indeed.
I forget that it's Hollywood and you know, applaud everything and stuff like that.
Well, you heard my intro there, and I'm just fascinated and have to ask you right off the bat. I mean, obviously, your parents are the most celebrated couple in the history of Hollywood, really. And for film noir fans, they're both their faces are the most iconic and symbolic faces in film noir. I mean, Bogart is synonymous with noir, Bacall is synonymous with noir. Does this mean anything to you, or is it like, those are my parents?
That's a weird question. In what way?
Well, just in the sense of when you watch them on screen, are you seeing Humphrey Bogart, this #1 male movie icon of all time, or are you saying, wow, that's my dad, I really recognize myself in him or something?
I really don't say either of those things. I'm 66 and I've seen, my father made 75 movies and I've probably seen 50 of them. And my mother, not only did I see her on film, but I saw her every day. Yeah. And so I never really thought, oh, there's my mother, there's my father. It's kind of the actors. And I also don't say, oh, there's Lauren Bacall and there's Humphrey Bogart, of course, because they're my parents. So I don't look any differently. I kind of look at the movie instead of them.
So it's a totally separate thing. They're just, yeah.
They're just, I mean, that's what they do for a living. It's kind of, if your dad or mom were a banker and you go into the bank and there's my father and
I got to tell you,
whatever.
Stephen, it's a little bit different. It's a little bit different.
But after you go into the bank a lot, then you kind of, then it just becomes rote, and that's kind of the way it is. It's a little different, but not much. I mean, it's the same thing. It's just a different job, kind of.
Bankers don't fill theaters. That's anyway. You were actually pretty young when your dad died.
8.
You were 8 years old.
Yes.
So, do you have any recollections of him as your dad in that time?
Well, yeah, I did write a book, in, excuse me, In Search of My Father, and it was kind of trying to find out who he was as a person, because I was 8 when he died, and you don't really know your parents that well at that age, especially since he was off making a lot of movies, and on the weekends he'd go on the Santana. So I remember the Santana being the boat. So I remember snippets and snapshots of him, but I can't, interestingly enough, I can't picture his voice, or I can't hear his voice other than on film, because I don't think that he was around that much. Hello? Yeah. I don't think he was, it is cutting out. I don't think he was around that much, or as much as he could have been, because he was working. Like, he went to Africa to film The African Queen with my mom, and he made 75 movies in his life, and probably 20 or 30 of them during the time of my birth. So I remember snippets and pictures of him, and I do remember there's one incident, and those of you who've read my book, which has been out for a long time, and you can get it on Amazon for $2. There's one. $2, right? Anyway, but I was on the boat, I remember, and I remember coming back from from Catalina, and my father wanted to see if I could swim back, and there was a boat, a dinghy next to me, and I would swim back from Catalina Island to the boat, which was to the Santana, which was docked out there. And I'd gone to Catalina and picked up, I don't know if they're there now because I haven't been there in a long time, but there used to be crabs, little crabs running all over the beach. And I picked up the crabs and I brought them back, and I had this little skunk kind of thing, not a real animal, but in a cage, and you'd turn the bottom crank and the skunk would move its head. So I decided, I think I'm going to pull the skunk out of the thing, put in the crabs, lower it over the side, and catch a fish. So I told my father what I was going to do. He said, that's a great idea. And, I was, 6, 7 years old. So I lowered the thing over the side, and the next morning I get up, and my father says, hey, you should check and see if you got anything. And I start pulling it up, and it's heavy. And I'm thinking, I got something there. And the something turned out to be a lobster, minus his tail. And a lot of Californians here, so I'm sure you all know that lobsters actually swim backwards. And the lobster was in the cage frontwise. Well, I found out later that my father and everybody on board had lobster tails that night and stuffed the head of the lobster in the cage, and they had a big laugh, and I did too. But that's one of the good moments that I do remember.
Okay. Now, conversely, as you've kind of noted, and I guess I can say my condolences, because it was very recently
you can say
that your mom passed away, and wow, an extraordinary life, working right up till the very end.
Yeah, that's a hell of a life. I mean, to grow up and to be able to be Lauren Bacall your whole life. I mean, you're living tons and tons of life. People ask me, were you upset? And when you lose your mother, of course it's upsetting, but you can't be sad for her. I mean, she got to do what she got to do. She got to meet all these people. She got to marry Humphrey Bogart and be Bogey and Bacall, and then she won the Tony Awards and all that sort of stuff. And I talked to her that morning, and she was fine. And she had a stroke and died in 7 hours, and she wasn't in any pain. And how much better can it be, really? 89 years old. So. No, it's not. You miss your parents, but I really wasn't sad because of the life that she got to live.
Yeah. I have to tell you a quick funny story. I actually met your mother and interviewed her.
How was that?
At some length. You asked that? Did I sense trepidation in your voice when you asked?
I just asked a simple question.
Okay. No, it was fantastic. She was delightful. And no, she was. We had a really good time. Here was the deal. I was doing that for the American Cinematheque because she was supposed to appear here at a tribute that she had to back out of. And so the Cinematheque flew me to New York to do an interview with her on a media day for a film she did with Paul Schrader called The Walker. Yes. Okay, and
Woody
so
Harrelson.
it was Woody Harrelson. And we did this in the penthouse of the St. Regis Hotel, and I was the last interviewer of the day because she kindly had said, no, I owe this guy a lot of time because I had to cancel this engagement. And so all these people were coming in from, People Magazine and Entertainment Tonight, and they were literally getting 2 minutes and 3 minutes a crack with your mom. And I was on the list as Eddie Muller, American Cinematheque, 60 minutes. And so everybody was like, wow, who's this guy to get 60 minutes with
Did you
Bacall?
get 60 minutes?
I did get, and she was tired. It was a long day. But here's the reason I'm telling you this story. I was in the media room beforehand, and there was a young woman in there, sky-high miniskirt and her little BlackBerry, and this was the media, the new media. She's looking up Lauren Bacall on the BlackBerry, and I hear her say to her colleagues, now I hear she was married to somebody famous.
It does happen. It does happen. It happens a lot, but as I look, there are a number of young people here too. So a lot of young people know, and a lot of people just don't have a clue, and that's okay. I mean, what are you going to do?
Well, I want to ask you a little bit further about that because
The kids of today, I'll tell you.
Those kids today. Have you seen a change from as Stephen Bogart 30 years ago, the cachet of being the offspring of Bogart and Bacall, is it different today?
The cachet.
Well, come on,
I never thought of it as a cachet. I mean, I get I get the deal, but I think I'm better able to handle it. Obviously, I mean, I'm 66, and after you've been around for that long, and you see all the stuff that's happened in the world and happened to friends and all that, probably the least difficult thing that I've had to deal with is being the son of Humphrey Bogart and Lauren Bacall. This is it's not a burden. I mean, when I was in my 20s, I rebelled, but I was in my 20s. But obviously, fewer people know of him than did then. However, there's been a resurgence, and a lot of people, everybody here is going to get drunk on gin afterwards, knows him, and a lot of alcoholics in the audience, and. But a lot of people do know him, and a lot of young people. We do the film festival in Key Largo every year, and it's surprising how many, October 21st to the 24th, and it's surprising how many young people go and follow me around.
Well, when I did that,
Just a couple.
When I did that intro and I talked about how the AFI now recognizes Humphrey Bogart as the most recognizable movie icon, I really do think that has something to do with the changing taste of the culture, because I think audiences today are more inclined to appreciate Bogart's image and attitude, whereas somebody like John Wayne has faded in popularity. Cary Grant, the romantic ideal leading man, isn't as popular as what your dad was really responsible for bringing to the screen, which was this very new, cynical attitude. He was not he wasn't Cary Grant handsome. He had a whole different kind of appeal that I think still resonates very strongly with audiences.
True, but John Wayne is still big. I mean, the Duke is... The Duke is still huge, and my mother loved Cary Grant. My mother would have rather had Cary Grant in the movie initially than my father. There's an interview that
there you go. Tweet that out right away.
Right.
Yeah,
they did. What a world! Tweet. I swear to God. But there's an Edward R. Murrow interview, and my mother says that. She says, when I first heard I was going to be with Humphrey Bogart and Taverna Knot, I wasn't very excited, and then I met him and I wasn't very excited. But then I kind of grew excited. But her favorite was Cary Grant until, of course, she met my father.
Interesting. And you know, I wasn't joking. I really enjoyed the time that your mom spent with me doing this interview. She was very forthright, shall we say? Yes.
Yeah. See, now it comes out. Now it comes out. All of a sudden, oh, it's great and everything was. No, she was very forthright. Well put.
Yes. I remember saying, is it true that John Huston and Richard Brooks made Key Largo to pay off gambling debts that they had from getting snookered in Cuba? And she said, Richard Brooks, that cheap son of a bitch.
Yeah, I believe that. I believe that.